establishment. Oh, now we're recording. That's really smart.
I know. I
just in case they missed it,
remembered.
if you go to Memphis, Central Barbecue, Central.
And you're getting a thumbs up from Dan. He loves the place as well. So
Yeah,
there
Central's
you go.
awesome. Thanks,
You've
Dan.
got approval. You're now in. You're now in. So one of the things Brooks just mentioned actually is he's the man the play man, if you will. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking a lot about today is the idea of motivation, something that Brooks has coined as a term, serious fun, which we're going to dive into quite a bit. And then the magic of play and kind of some of the misconceptions around the word, especially for adults, and what it really kind of means and how we can apply it. But I think let's start with the idea of serious fun and maybe introducing what that is and what the concept is behind it and maybe some background. One of the things I think I'm just going to call out before you dive into it is I've heard you describe yourself in the past as a recovering stressaholic. And I'm wondering if you can kind of define that and put it into a little context, and then we'll bring it into the idea of fun and play.
Sure. So to me, one of the least understood things when it comes to health is understanding language. And there is this constant dialogue that's happening in your brain. Whether you like it or not, sometimes the dialogue is talking about things that you like, sometimes it's talking about things that you don't. But your thoughts shape your perception of your reality. And so there are things that you can do to upgrade your language, which we'll talk about later. But what I'll say is before I had been given the language of work, and that language was given a high value. So having lived in Korea, where people work 16, 17 hours a day regularly, they consider themselves to be able to work more. And so I adopted that as part of my identity, that I could work harder and longer than other people around me. And I wore it with a badge of honor, not realizing that the language that I was using to describe my reality was actually causing my internal health to decline. And once I was able to shift my language from a language of work to a language of play, especially when it came to my exercise, I saw a very large shift in myself, which was the first breadcrumb, realizing that as adults, there is a very serious problem out there. If you take a look around at some of the statistics, mental health issues are way up, depression levels way up, general health way down. People are gaining weight at an unprecedented rate with the pandemic. And so this is a very serious problem, especially in the United States, because there's an economic cost to all of this. There's the personal economic cost to all of this, which for some people is having to see doctors more frequently, having to pay for medicine more regularly, and it costs them money to have their health poor. If it didn't cost money, there wouldn't be such a massive attempt by companies to bring in corporate wellness programs. Why would a corporation who legally by law must maximize profits, that is a by law thing, if it's not meant to drive up profits? So there is an economic cost to all of this. And there is a serious personal cost to be paid. A lot of people are feeling disconnected from other people. A lot of people are feeling disconnected to themselves. Opioid usage in the United States is rampant. We've had more alcoholism-related deaths in the United States in the last 18 months than has been recorded in a long time. So as I look around, I see that to be very serious problems. And I believe and have experienced that the solution to all of these is very simple, and that's more fun in people's life. Fun is so underestimated when it comes to understanding how much it shapes your outlook on life. You can be serious and take a look at the problems that you'd like to solve in the world, but the more that we spend time being serious, the more that we lose touch with something that is inherent in all of us. If you look deep in nature, if you watch little kids, if you watch little cubs, they know how to fall into this state naturally. I noticed this when I was working in a middle school. I had the language of work to describe the physical education. So I'd spend 40 minutes trying to get the kids to do the work, and I'd open up 10 minutes of free play time, and the kids would run themselves into the dirt. They'd get more done in that 10 minutes of unstructured free play time than I could get them to do using the language of work. And I realized that nobody was doing this for adults, at least not in the fitness industry. And I decided to take that on as a personal mission. At face value, it's, oh yeah, everybody likes to have fun. But as you dive deeper, you realize that many people struggle to have fun. Many people struggle to find joy in their life. If it wasn't so common, then we wouldn't see such high rates of depression, high rates of anxiety, high rates of feeling socially isolated from other people. And so what I've tried to do in my own humble way is give people tools that help them start to discover what is fun for them. Because how I like to play as a kid, and how Heather liked to play as a kid, and how whomever is reading or seeing this recording or here on this live, you may have a different way of expressing what is fun for you. And so instead of me presupposing what I believe is the best way to play, I take a look at what happens on the playground as kids. And sometimes you got one kid over here that's like climbing on the monkey bars, and you got another group of kids that's playing a game and they're keeping score and they like to be competitive. And you have another kid that's creating a storyline to themselves, and they're like exploring and looking at leaves and like really, playing with bugs, right? They're observing nature in a different way. So all of us have a different way that we like to play, and the combinations of which we like to play is also very unique too. So instead of me, like I said, presupposing how one should play, I've tried to create a toolkit for people to discover what feels good for them from a play perspective, and then empower them with some basic physical tools that will unlock their ability to explore their world with confidence.
Amazing. And I guess just to spin off that, like, even the first steps, right? So somebody is interested in this idea of play and introducing fun and whatnot, methodology back into their life. Where would you kind of direct somebody to kind of have that jumping off point?
The first question I always ask someone is, how did you play as a kid? If you will allow yourself, and you'll allow me to take you back to a much simpler time. If you went to a traditional school like I did, imagine, for me, it's like second grade, for whatever reason, really sticks out to me. I had Miss Reinhardt. I had Miss Reinhardt in second grade, and I was an astute student, and so I would do my best to follow the rules and do all my work and not be too much of a hassle in class. But when it got to be about 1:30 or 2:00, my body knew that I needed a shift. And so I remember the moment when Miss Reinhardt told us we were about to go outside. And it was like a visceral, exciting response in your body. It feels electric. You're like, yes, I'm about to go outside. Everybody remembers this, whether you did it out loud or did it in your mind. If you love being outside, that was where, for me, I was so excited. And so she'd ask us to line up, because you remember, you got to keep it structured. You're not quite outside yet. You have to hold whatever remaining discipline you have left in your exhausted mind and body. And she lines you up in the line, and she's walking you down the hallway, and there's always lines because everything's going to be structured. But then you'd hit the double doors. Everybody knows the double doors. You didn't go to a school that didn't have double doors. Why? Because one door was definitely not enough for a bunch of kids. You needed at least 2 lanes of traffic. So there's always double doors. I'll never forget. And the double doors, they burst open, and you get that huge dose of sunlight. That feeling right there is, to me, the gateway to understanding and remembering, because that's what we're doing. And let's talk words for a second. Remembering, that's a word that you hear all the time. Let's break it down. Remembering. To remember means to put the members back together that has been broken apart. So if I'm remembering, I am taking pieces and putting them back together. And so what happens as we get older, we are primed to be very serious and to grow up and to, put away the childlike stuff, and the members are pulled apart. And so what I like to do is to help them put it back together. Start with how you played as a kid. Now you may say, Brooks, I played hard when I was a kid. I played really hard. I played sports, and I'm 45 years old, and I just can't play like I used to. And to that, I would say, completely understand. But what can you do to recapture just a piece of that, just to start? So I played baseball as a kid. I loved baseball. It was a huge part of my childhood. And while I may not be able to join a team and go run down fly balls or throw the ball as hard as I used to, what I can do is play catch with my friend and just be outside and remember these small things that brought me joy as a kid. The feel of the ball in my hand, the feeling of the stitching on the ball, the feeling of my hand in the glove, the sound that the ball makes when it hits the glove, the feeling that my palm makes when somebody throws it a little extra hard and it hits in the wrong place and it makes your hand sting. This is all remembering. Memory is much more than just your mind. It's not a mental construct. You can also feel things in your body. Maybe you played, I don't know, I went to public school. We played double dutch a lot. If you remember, a double dutch is two people, each got a rope, and they move the ropes this way, and you got to like find your timing in there. You'd be like, man, I love playing double dutch. Well, maybe you don't have a partner that can play double dutch with, but maybe you can get a jump rope and you can just re-explore how to jump rope. And you go, well, dude, I got a bad knee. I got a bad ankle. Cool. There are actual physical practices out there that allow you to use a rope where you don't have to jump. In fact, I've been practicing a rope, something called rope flow. And the coin is jump the rope. Do not jump the rope. How can you move the rope around you without actually jumping it? So I'm giving a couple of varied examples to get to the main point. What's the next best thing that you can do to remember, put the pieces back together? And once you do that, once you've taken the next step, you ask, okay, what else could I do? What's the next best thing that I could do now that I've remembered this one piece? Can I add another member? Can I add another member? Can I add another member? So these are the first steps. How can I reclaim what I did as childhood? And what's the one thing that I can do to take a step to that and commit to that on a small dose? I would say daily. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes. What do you have to spare? How can I intentionally put this back into my life? Intention matters. Where I put my attention is my intention. Intention. So intention also is inside tension, right? Now imagine pulling things apart. How can I create tension inside of myself to get that momentum that I want? That's what we do. If I am not putting in any effort, there is no tension. And so the first thing is I have the intention to reclaim fun into my life. I'm going to start to remember where I used to play as a kid, and I'm going to take the next best step that I can to reclaim that.
I love that. Kind of going off of that, the whole idea of intention, because I think this kind of spins into kind of the next piece that I wanted to talk to you about, but is a little bit around the philosophy behind recess and the philosophy of serious fun, which has evolved into a podcast that you deliver. And I think is certainly really reflective of who you are as a person as well, the idea of that balance. So I'm just wondering if we can kind of dive into the idea of having intentional fun, and balancing it with serious life.
Thank you. I will start by saying we can tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but we drastically underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. So one of the biggest challenges that one might experience when remembering or reclaiming this is creating unfair expectations to themselves for how quickly they should be able to remember or reclaim this. So if there's a philosophy behind all of this, it's if you are trying to receive an outcome you are likely not playing. Play doesn't need to receive an outcome. Play is something that you do for the sake of doing it. So if you find yourself casting your serious mind onto your fun, you may be missing the point altogether. Play because it's something that you like, not something that you have to receive something from. Playing is its own benefit. So again, we've talked about the serious problems, which is, people are struggling in many cases with their internal health, with their external health, and they're not really sure where to turn. There's so much noise out there telling them they should be eating this way, or they should be doing this exercise program, or they should be doing these exercise movements, or they should be reading these books. And none of that is actually true. It's only a recommendation. It's presented as truth many times, but it's not actually true. So the intention, the end part of it is what matters to me. I want you, whoever's listening to this, to really think about that question. What matters to me? Not what have I been told should matter to me, not what I've been told by my friends, by my family, but what actually matters to me. And what actually matters to me personally, Brooks, is a stronger connection to myself, to me, yields a stronger connection to my wife. That matters to me. So if I'm doing things that take away my ability to connect from my wife, then I'm getting away from the point. So I've chosen my values in this case. My values are strong connection with my wife, strong connection with my friends, being good at my job. That's part of and so the more I take care of what fills up my cup, so to speak, and brings me joy, the more I'll be able to pour that into the other things that matter to me. And I think that we've been duped into believing that we should be sacrificing ourselves for others. You can be of service without having to sacrifice. So what I like to do is pull these words apart. Sacrifice and service don't mean the same thing. If they did, we wouldn't need another word to describe the same point. That's why we have multiple words, because we're trying to get into nuance. But what happens is that other words sort of get barnacled, like a barnacle on a ship, and you have to start to scrape them off. And sacrifice and service are not the same thing. I think what most people want is to be of service. They want to be of service to their friends. They want to be of service to their community. They're small or large. They want to be of service to their work, to their partner. And they have learned that sacrificing their own personal happiness or joy is the way to be of service. And I did that for a very long time. I ended up trying to torch all of the things that were good in my life, just tried to blow them all up. Tried to end my relationship with my now wife multiple times in the early days. Thank God that didn't work. One way that I would cope is I would add more stuff to do. Like, oh yeah, I already have a master's degree, but why don't I just fill my time with studying for another's master's degree? And I'm also going to try to start a third business. And one of my favorite philosophies in life is if you only have one ass, you shouldn't try to ride all the horses. And so remembering that if I can use my one ass to focus on myself and fill up my cup, when it's overflowing, I can immediately pour this out to other people. And to me, fun allows people to do that. It's a really simple mechanism to get them to do that. You have multiple kinds of health. You have, I don't know if y'all can hear my dogs in the background. My beagle's really having a good time. You have your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, and your physical health. And to me, it's what I've noticed is that people try to put them in separate boxes. Like I'll just put my mental health right up here. I'm going to put my physical health over here. And there goes my spiritual health right there. And I just put them in separate areas. But I'm one person. I'm one container. I can't separate these things. I'm all part of one vessel. So what I've found is that for someone that's interested in improving their mental, their emotional, or their spiritual strength, starting with the physical is a really great way to do that. Why? Because when your senses are tied up into things, it really can bring you into the present moment. So in our world, Heather, we used to do a lot of hard workouts, right? Name another time in your life where you felt more present than in a really tough workout. I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't thinking about anything like that. The only thing that mattered to me was this next rep, this next thing, because for the next 5 minutes of my life, nothing else matters. And so the more I use, I have stopped doing things that physically harm me to the degree that I used to do that. I was very competitive. I would physically harm myself to a degree just to win. I've learned that as I've aged is not the best way to serve myself now. It was a great way to learn back then. It doesn't serve me now. But what physical play allows me to do is to tap into what emotions are present when I am having fun. Am I thinking about things? What comes to mind when I'm done playing? What can I do to enhance my spirit? And spirit is an interesting word because it gets thrown around a lot. Maybe energy. If you are experiencing depression, you're experiencing a lowering of your spirit. You don't have a lot of energy. And there's a lot of words that we use. Emotions, I like to think about it as energy in motion. So I have motion that happens in the physical plane, and I have emotion that happens in the internal plane, which is just my emotions or energy in motion. Just like I have mail, the hard physical mail, and I have email, the electronic version of that. My emotions are just my spirit in motion throughout my body. And what happens, if I can just keep rolling on this, if we are thinking about our emotions, and what happens is usually either a thought cascades and triggers an emotion, or an emotion can cascade and trigger into thoughts. And what we can get trapped in is believing that we are those things. We are the sense of feeling in our body, or we are the thought that is happening in our mind. But the truth is, you can't be the thing that you're observing. And if I'm having a thought and I'm listening to myself have that thought, I can't be that thought. There's just a problem with the subject object there. I can't be the thing that I'm observing. It just can't work. So what I am is the person or the thing that notices that these other things are happening. And what I know is that when I experience a very strong emotion, my mind wants to kick in and tell me what this emotion means. When really it may just be as simple as I'm experiencing energy in motion that I have learned to label as this thing with my language. And so what I think this is a really good time to share one way that we can move some energy. We can put some energy in motion. So if you are sitting at your desk and you're listening to this, if you have earbuds in, what I invite you to do is just know that I'm about to put some sound into your earbuds. And we're going to do something called the 1 minute wiggle. It's a really simple, really great way to move some energy. This is exactly how I prepped for this talk, is I did the 1 minute wiggle. And so in the spirit of Heather's and I's friendship, I'm going to play one of my favorite songs for the 1 minute wiggle. And I invite you, standing or sitting, to get some motion in 3, 2, 1. Oh, baby. Man, I love Blackpink. And as I slowly fade out Jisoo, I bring it back to, I have just moved some energy in my body, to say the least. Got some breath going, feel my heart rate. I'm sitting down. I didn't jump up. I usually like to jump around and do some dance. But these are very simple ways that we can start to change our energy and redirect that flow. in a physical way that helps us mend all of the other three. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Brooks. I think that wiggle is definitely something we should try to implement multiple times a day, especially sitting at a desk for 8 hours can be a little bit much. So just doing something like that took 30 seconds, something really great. It adds some of that fun. And kind of on that fun note, I'm going to read out something Melissa wrote into the chat with some questions in there. I'm going to read it all out because I think it's really great. And if you could kind of comment on some of that. So Melissa asks, I feel like fun has been put on the back burner for almost 2 years. When I'm allowed to go out and have fun, I experience a lot of anxiety. I don't feel like I can let my guard down and experience the fun in the same carefree way I used to. Do you see this in other people as a result of the pandemic? Do you think this will change, or do we have to reevaluate our own version of fun now? And I can definitely +1 this a bunch, because I think this is something everybody's feeling and can totally relate to. So I think if you could kind of comment on that, that'd be great.
Thank you. I will do that. I'm actually reading the comment too. And I noticed that we have some quotations here. We have quotations around the word fun, and we have quotations around the word allowed. And that's the part that I want to get into. The only person that can allow you to have fun is you. No one else can grant you the right, which is inherent in your existence, to have fun. No one will allow you to have fun but you. So if you are experiencing anxiety, and I love, this is really strong language here. I don't want to skip over this. I experience a lot of anxiety. Notice that Melissa didn't say, I am anxious, or I am an anxious person. This is really critical here, because saying that you experience anxiety creates separation between you and the thing. You noticed it, you experience it. Now, the question that I ask is, will you allow yourself to have that fun? And if you're noticing that you're experiencing anxiety when you are trying to have fun, this is a great place to start. When did that start for me? How long has this been going on? So I don't feel I can let my guard down and experience fun the same carefree way I used to. That may be accurate. Maybe you have not experienced it in a way that you used to. Do I see this in other people as a result of the pandemic? I would say beyond the pandemic, this is something that I started talking about and started trying to tackle well before the pandemic. What I believe is happening is the pandemic has accelerated, amplified, and brought to light the things that were already there. When we added a lot of the extra elements of not getting into our workflow. So the funny thing is a lot of our behaviors are triggered by environment, and we may not realize this because they're subconscious triggers. So before, we had our workplace where we went to work, and we had our gym place that we went to the gym, and then we had our home place where we went to home. And how I behaved at work, how I dressed at work, how I presented myself at work was different than how I presented, dressed, and showed up to the gym, which was different than how I presented, dressed, and showed up at home. And then, boom, everything became one thing. And we were constantly receiving subconsciously the triggers of home, but we were trying to exhibit the behaviors of the workplace and the behaviors of the gym place. So that's why I believe this has been amplified and accelerated. And so do you think this will change, or do we have to reevaluate our version of fun now? I encourage everyone to always be reevaluating what your version of fun is, because what was fun for me 2 years ago or 5 years ago when Heather and I were hanging out is not fun to me now. I do not like burying myself underweight for hours on end like I used to. That used to be fun for me. I have reevaluated. I encourage you to consistently reevaluate what fun is for you, because that's how you are going to be consistent in your fun. If you're fixed in your mindset that this was my version of fun once, and so it's my version forever, you may experience anxiety because you are not in an alignment with what is fun for you now. So to finalize my, my opinion or my recommendation to Melissa, remember that A, only you can allow yourself to have fun. B, if you're experiencing anxiety, become curious. Maybe not why, but just when or how. When and how does this happen? This happens when I know that I have a deadline, or this happens when I know that I have to be somewhere else. Okay, cool. Well, what can we do to change that criteria and those constraints a little bit to set yourself up for success by, doing it when you don't have a deadline, or maybe reducing the amount of time that you feel you have to be dedicated towards your fun in any given moment, and expanding what that looks like. And so I don't feel I can let my guard down and experience fun. Okay. If you don't feel that way, what can you do? What's one thing that you can do to start to give yourself permission to do that? And I think this is something that pre-existed the pandemic, has been highlighted by the pandemic, and will continue very far into the future.
Awesome. Just to kind of spin off that, because one of the things I always love when I listen to one of your podcasts or we talk is your constant evolution and things that are changing. And you kind of alluded to that in that your definition of fun and what's fun for you now is completely different from where it was 5 years ago. And I know from our relationship and our friendship that you've evolved from your self-titled stressaholic into a much more carefree person who enjoys life on a different level. And I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about that idea of your evolution from the stressaholic into embracing fun in your day-to-day, and what that journey has been like for you, and kind of maybe what the pivot points were that kind of readjusted your path.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I tried to, there was a point where I would say I hit rock bottom. And by rock bottom, I mean that I tried to implode everything in my life, tried to implode my business, implode my relationships, and that all paralleled at the same time. I realized I wasn't having fun. That all paralleled at the same time that I was watching kids do it intuitively and naturally and easily. And that just highlighted a very strong question for myself, which was, why can't I do this? What is it about these kids that is missing in me? And once I started to explore more and started to test this on adults, I started to realize that it wasn't just me, that this is something that this is way more prevalent than I had first imagined, because it's really funny trying to get adults to play a game. It's like watching a middle school dance where everybody's where the boys and girls are separate, and they nobody has yet made the commitment to meet in the middle to start dancing. And if you've lived an awkward middle school like anybody else, especially like me, that may resonate. And so, yeah, it was funny to watch these adults feel very awkward and realize that they had lost something that was so natural and so effortless to them, really in a short amount of time. 10 years, it can sometimes be the difference between playing at 12 and able to be fun and taking life too seriously at 22. And so that's where, again, just seeing the kids do it naturally was the part that highlighted for me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the next kind of areas I wanted to kind of go into is a little bit around the idea of the state of play and kind of some of the misconceptions that adults have around play and how it fits into our world, and maybe clarifying that and how, and what your thoughts on reestablishing some of those play practices are, because you do it better than anybody I know.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think the first biggest misconception about play is that it's a set of actions. So I can be doing the same thing, pick any activity. Maybe for me, it's my rope. I'm playing with my rope flow. One day I could be doing the same thing and be playing. The next day I could be doing the same thing and not playing. So play is more of a state than it is an action. It is a state of being in action, but it's not the action itself. So one word that may link up to your lexicon when it comes to play that may help is flow. There's been a lot of introduction of flow state into the work performance world. I have another book behind me called The Art of Impossible by a guy named Stephen Kotler. He's written several books, The Rise of Superman being one, but The Art of Impossible is like a synopsis of all of his work put in together into one book, and that's understanding the state of flow. So the first thing I would say is play is not just an action, it's a state of being in action. The second thing is that play, there's no benefit to play. There's tons of science coming out that performance-wise, being in a flow or a play state accelerates your learning curve. So if I'm being very serious while trying to learn something, I believe the number is like as much as 10x. If I'm in a state of play, I can accelerate my learning curve by up to 10x by learning how to make this into a game. Just to bring this into something that people have already heard, probably about 3 to 5 years ago, there was a massive push to gamify everything. Everybody heard gamify, you got to gamify it. Like there was a massive rush to gamify everything. Why? It's because some of the neuroscience, the cutting edge neuroscience was showing that it's actually a performance enhancing drug. And really, it's a cocktail of chemicals that cascade into each other when you are experiencing and engaging in that. Which allows you to narrow your focus. It allows you to receive dopamine, which is like the nice feedback mechanism that we get. The next thing I would say about play is to remember that you can choose your own type of play. In the book behind me, there are 8 play archetypes. And I think that that's really valuable as people think that they have to play a certain way. I'm trying to let my brain take me onto another thread, but I would say the biggest misconception is that it's something that you do. I encourage you to think of it more as a state. The aha moment is, what do I have to do to even tap into that state? That's really the question. Okay, great, it's a state, but how do I tap into it? Well, there's certain criteria that needs to be present. The first one is that you need to feel safe. If you do not feel safe and you are experiencing a state of fear, being in the state of play cannot exist. A simple way to describe this is, say I wanted to practice my balance. One of my favorite flow practices for a while was balance. And so I had a small little balance beam that was about 6 inches, 10 centimeters off of the ground. I'm still trying to work on my translation. It was about 6 inches off the ground. And when I was practicing, I could easily fall into a flow state because I felt safe. I'm only 6 inches off the ground. But if you put me 12 feet off the ground and asked me to try to do that without any experience, I would have a very hard time entering into the state of play because of the fear of falling. So that's the first thing. You got to feel safe. And the second thing that needs to be present is that it needs to be, there's a sweet spot of challenge. So it needs to, if it's too easy, you can't fall into the state, because you don't have to pay attention. There has to be a certain amount of focus that goes into it in order to trigger this state of play. But it also can't be too challenging. It can't be too far beyond your skill set that you're unable to concentrate on it. So I think and again, Art of Impossible, the sweet spot's like 4%. This needs to be 4% beyond your current capabilities. So for me on the balance beam, maybe the first time I did it, I was only able to walk down the balance beam 1 time. Well, today my goal is to be able to walk down the balance beam and complete one 180 degree turn. And so my whole focus goes into making my 1 trip down and making a 180 degree turn. And that level of challenge is enough to trigger this state where I lose my sense of time and space differentiation seems to drop out. Your focus begins to narrow into more of like a tunnel vision. And so that's how you've known you found that state. And the other thing is, I would encourage people to notice, if you do find yourself into that state, how you feel when you're done. If you notice how you're feeling when you're done, as opposed to immediately like jumping into the next thing and getting back to work, give yourself a 60 to 120 second window where you notice your energy level, you notice your breathing, you notice your level of joy, you notice what thoughts are now coming back in that you have exited the state of play that were not present when you were there. I find that to be very valuable information. and seeing how play can be incredibly beneficial to your day, your life. And to me, that once I discovered this, there was no unlearning it. There's, to talk about language, I think this will be very potent. There's a word that has been, for the most part, like sanitized from the English language. And the word is nescient or nascent. Heather or Bridget, are you familiar with nascent or nescient? You know what this word means?
I actually am, but I cheated and I've visited your most recent Barbell Buddha Revisited podcast recently, where you dive into this a little bit. So I'll turn it to Bridget because I already have the answer.
Cool. Bridget, do you know what it means?
And you gave it to me, so before that I didn't know.
I didn't do my homework. I unfortunately do not know what that means. I'm interested to find out.
Yeah. To be nescient or nascent means to make a mistake because you don't know the information. You don't have the requisite knowledge. So right now, the people that are on this call, the people that are watching this, they may be nescient to the power of play. They made the mistake because they don't know. But there's a word that usually gets subbed in for nescient that people do know, and it's ignorant. But the fun thing about words is all I have to do is change the emphasis of my language just a little bit, and it really changes the meaning. Ignorant. Ignorant. If I ignore something, I am ignorant. So what may be casted as ignorance, people make a mistake, is actually nescience because they didn't have the requisite knowledge to not make the mistake in the first place. And I think this is really potent for where we are in the world today, because many times people can get labeled as ignorant, but that misses an opportunity for everyone involved to grow, which assumes that someone has the requisite information to make the right decision in the beginning. And that's a very large assumption. A lot of times I would say the average person really wants to do better. And if they had the information, they would do better. But for fear of maybe being labeled ignorant, they choose not to engage. So if you are nescient or nascent, I'm still working on the pronunciation, I can't remember. If you're nascent to the fact that play is very important to your life and you've been overly serious your adult life, now with this information, you may go forward. And if you choose not to engage, then you would be ignorant, because hopefully I've made at least somewhat of a comparable and comprehensive case for dosing in some fun things into your life, because it's going to impact your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health, and your physical health in a very positive way. It's a performance enhancer, and you don't need to receive any result from doing it. Doing it itself is the reward. Doing it itself is what will allow for those other things to be better.
Nice. So having been on a bit of a Brooks kick and excitement and bringing things up here, I've spent some time revisiting some of your podcasts. So for those of you who don't know, Brooks actually has two podcasts that he's done over the last few years. One of them is called Barbell Buddha Rediscovered. I always want to say revisited, but it's rediscovered.
Correct.
And then the second one is called Serious Fun. And I dive into them periodically for a little inspiration, little motivation. I always listen to ones with friends of ours. So Carl Paoli, I listened to recently on Barbell Buddha, and then Eric Wan did both of his recently from Serious Fun, which I always love. These are people from mine and Brooks's CrossFit world. But one of in your most recent podcast that you did on Barbell Buddha Revisited was you told a story and talked a lot about how you kind of got knocked back a little bit in your motivation and your drive in the last 6 months, and how you actually had to kind of reassess and reevaluate and then reposition yourself to keep moving forward on that. And I was wondering if you might be able to kind of retell that story a little bit on a little downturn that you experienced and how you kind of took control of it and revamped and got yourself back on track to keep moving forward. Because I think that's a great lesson for everybody these days. And we're certainly kind of seeing those comments like Melissa's in the chat, where some of the pandemic repercussions are affecting us and things that we do and are normally kind of old hat or habit for us.
Yeah. I believe you're talking about basically how I've revamped myself for the last 7 months. Is that accurate? Um, I'm a coach and I have all this knowledge, and even still, I also had my own, fair share of challenges during the pandemic. You know, um, it should not be underestimated the impact of isolation from other people. The first thing is that the human being has 5 different nourishment types. I'm going to offer some education here, and then I'll talk more personally about my journey. The human being has 5 different nourishment types. When we hear the word nourishment, typically we think of edible nourishment, what we feed ourselves, the food that we eat, the water that we drink, all the above. We also have intellectual nourishment needs, or how we feed our brain. We also have what they call biophilic, or bio meaning life, philic meaning love, biophilic, love of life. Biophilic means engaging with nature, smelling smells, witnessing feeling the breeze on your skin, experiencing the sun hit your skin. All of these things are nourishment in that I can be taking in my environment in a way that enlifts my experience. Kinetic is another one. Physical movement is nourishment. Being in motion is very incredible at being a nourishing activity. So, notwithstanding the health impacts physically of walking, say 10,000 steps, 15,000 steps, on your mental clarity and all these things, but it is literal nourishment for your muscle tissue, for all of your lymphatic system, for all of your joints, and all of these things need physical motion. The old adage is if you don't use it, you lose it. I like to translate that and to remind people, if you use it, you keep it. Okay? So if you are not using it, you will lose it. But if you use it, you'll keep it. So go walk, go crawl, go climb. These are physical nourishment. And the last one is social. Being able to give somebody a hug, being able to experience someone in person. This is nourishment. And what we're seeing is a lot of people are either over or undernourished in many areas of their life. For me, I tended to be overnourished in physical and intellectual nourishment. I consumed a lot of information and did a lot of stuff with my body, but I did not experience life in the biophilic area. I wasn't actually taking in my gym environment, for example, or taking in my friends that were doing the class with me. I would actually ignore them in order to get my goal, not realizing that I'm missing a lot of the nourishing part of the whole gym experience I was having altogether. And so I decided to, during the pandemic, move my business online. And for one reason or another, I was trying to do more stuff. I figured I had all this extra time. I should have both podcasts. I should be able to build my online business. I should be growing my personal one-on-one clients, and I should be better at my marriage, and I should be better at all these things. And I realized, again, to go back to the point that I learned from Chris Moore, who's the dedicated podcast that I do, if you only have one ass, you shouldn't try to ride all the horses. And I was trying to ride them all to the sunset, not realizing that I was impairing my ability to do any one of them well. What does that mean? Well, in order to make progress in my life, the first thing that I had to do was start cutting away the things that I didn't like. And that was the easy part, if I'm being honest. By making progress, cutting away the things that I didn't like, that meant that I started building a life where everything that I did, I liked, which was really great. I love both podcasts. I love building my online business. I love working with people. But then there becomes a point in progress where the only way to make progress is to start cutting away things that you do like, and to start saying no to things that you actually do enjoy in order to put more attention and intention in the one thing that you want to get better. I say all this to say, once you have made that commitment, and you start to see progress, then you can open the floodgate back up a little bit and start allowing more things in. And this is not something that you do one time. There's a cycle that happens, and I like to think about it as a circle. So let's relate it back to play. That's why we're here. You're discovering now for the first time maybe, that play is really important. And you're about to embark in one of my favorite phases in this cycle, and that's the discovery phase. You're a beginner again. You're going to get to discover all of these things that you had maybe forgotten, and you're going to really enjoy it, and you're likely going to make a lot of progress really quickly. That 5 minutes a day will take you really far. But if you want to continue getting better at something, then you're going to enter into the second phase, which is the toil phase. You have to really toil with it or stick with it. Play may be harder to find as life stacks up on you a little bit. But if you toil with it long enough, you'll begin to enter another phase, which is the mastery phase. And for me, mastery came when I didn't have to think about how I was going to schedule play into my life. Play was my life, but it wasn't without a hard fought effort to make that front and center. It took me literally 7 years of my life to go from doing the things that I didn't want to do to basically from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to bed, I only do what I like. That's not something that I just decided and happened upon. It's something that I had to toil with. I had to toil with it in many different ways. Economically, it was not cool for me. It didn't feel great to not make as much money as I wanted, but that was the choice that I made in order to receive the other types of nourishment that I wanted in my life, which is to be able to say from the time that I wake up to the time that I go to bed, I'm in control of my life. I'm in control of how I spend my time. I'm in control of where my attention goes. And to me, that was worth more than money. But I had to toil with it for a long time. Now I'm in this phase of my life where, these conversations are what I like to do regardless of what would happen. I'm not here because I have to be. I'm here because I want to be. I choose to be here because this is fun for me. This is fun to be able to share and inspire and hopefully shed a little bit of light on what's possible for you as a person, which is you can do all of this. And I've hit the level of mastery with this, at least. I'm still a beginner in so many different areas. But eventually, the fourth phase of the cycle is I've reached this point of mastery where I want to teach other people. And it's in the teaching where the real magic to me happens, because I start teaching it and people are like, what do I got to do? What's the basics? And I'm like, all right, you get like, these are the 5 things or whatever that you need to know. And then there's this moment where I realize if they're so damn important, how come I'm not personally practicing them? And I get to rediscover this whole cycle again. I get to go back to being a beginner. I get to go back to remembering to get that 5 minutes of breathing, get that 5 minutes of sunshine, do something that I like. Some of the things that were play for me 2 months ago, I'd say like 6 months ago, like my rope, I'm now hit the point where like I have to kind of toil with it and it's not the fun part of my day anymore. So I find something else that I enjoy. So remember, if you would, this is not going to be a one-time. Discover what you find fun. If you want to take it to the next level, stay with it. You'll toil with it a little while. You'll eventually come out on the other side, which is a level of mastery. And the last is to share it with someone else. Sharing is how we amplify the impact that we want to make on the world. Keeping all of the gold for ourselves will never result in the type of impact that we want to see in the world. Everybody says, Gandhi, right? Be the change that you want to see in the world. Well, to be the change means that you, one, have to embody it and that you have to share it. He shared that with other people. If we're not willing to share and we want to keep all the gold for ourselves, well, I hate to break it to you, you can't take it with you. But the more that you share, even if it's just one person, the more that you're going to amplify that ripple effect that you can have on the world. And I hope whoever does watch this from end to end goes, I want to reclaim joy in my life. I want to reclaim play in my life. And I'm going to take 5 minutes after I get off this call to re-examine in my journal or wherever, what is it that I want to do? Truly me. If it's sing, if it's play guitar, whatever, find the thing that you want to do, give yourself 5 minutes a day. And I promise it'll be well worth the investment.
You set me up so well for this last question that I have there. It's like you knew what was coming. So one of my favorite podcasts is called School of Greatness, and it's hosted by Lewis Howes.
Lewis Howes.
Love it. But he finishes all of his podcasts with a question that I love. And basically what he does is he asks his guests to imagine themselves as a great great-great-grandfather. So Brooks, today you are a great-great-grandfather. You have lived your life. You have fulfilled all of your dreams. You've accomplished everything you've wanted to do, created the content you wanted, shared your knowledge with the world, reached every goal you've set. But the day comes for all of us. When you go, it all goes with you. So every piece of content, every article you've published, every video you've made, it all goes with you. And you are allowed to leave behind 3 lessons for the people in your life and the world to remember you by. And I'm curious, and I've got goosebumps because I know this is going to be really inspiring and wonderful, and I'm excited for your answer. But what 3 pieces of advice or lessons would you leave behind for the world and your loved ones to remember you by?
First one, remember that no one has ever died wishing that they had spent more time working. They always go wishing they had spent more time with their friends and their family and doing the things that they wanted. That to me is just like, even just saying it out loud, it hits me right in the heart. Because I get so lost in trying to accomplish things that I forget that what will last is my time with other people. That is the thing. If you get to take anything with you, it is that. Is the remembering that you gave yourself to other people. 2, this isn't I didn't make up this quote. I believe it's Voltaire. Could be wrong. Find what you love and let it kill you. Let it kill you over and over and over again. Doing what you love, it's going to hurt sometimes. There's going to be times that come up in your life where you think that fun is not possible. A death in the family, a tragedy. All of these things can close our heart off to the remembering that it's something that we allow for ourselves. So find what you love and just like do it with so much veracity, do it with so much intensity that it hurts. And the last one, remember that you're enough. There is no dharma too big or too small for this world. One of the biggest challenges of dharma is one of the biggest misconceptions about dharma is that their purpose is too small. And that can cause a lot of inner conflict for people, believing that they're not contributing enough. No dharma is too big or too small. And your contribution is enough. When you wake up every day, you are enough. And the only person that will ever realize that and give you permission to be enough is the only person that will allow will be you.
I have goosebumps. That was amazing. Perfect answers. On that note, where can people find you? I know there's a couple people that have been on the call today that want to reach out to you personally.
Great.
And connect with you. And I imagine that there's a lot of people that are going to step away from this and digest a lot of this and maybe have more questions and follow up. So where can people find you if they want some more inspiration or some more answers about where to start or how to play?
Totally. On a personal level, I'm happy to field any questions outside of this call. I will give you my email. It's my first name, Brooks, at carolinacorewellness.com. carolinacorewellness.com is a simple business email. If you like Instagram, my first and last name, Brooks Meadows, you can find me on Instagram. And if you're interested in having a toolkit for discovering your fun and reclaiming your natural athleticism, and I use that word intentionally, you have this, being able to be physical is your birthright. And so to me, it has less to do with athletic achievement and more about building up the confidence to go out and see and live my world with confidence. You can go to my website, seriousfun.io, seriousfun.io. If you do want to join, I've actually created a discount code for D2L. You'll be able to save $100 a year. And you'd go to Serious Fun, you'd click subscribe. At the checkout, you would enter discount code capital D, the number 2, capital L. You'll see $100 come off of your order. And if you want a preview of what it looks like behind the scene, it's on the homepage. So just scroll down the homepage. It gives you a quick preview. There's already a year's worth of programming in there right now. So right now you could go on there, log on, and you'd have a year's worth of stuff. There's a health transformation program for somebody that wants to really retool their health. If you like some of the tools that I gave during this presentation, you can find them in the Health Transformed. If you want to feel better, you want to move better, you want to get stronger, you want to learn how to create your own program, I already have programs in my workout library that teach you to do just that. And I'm really proud of that work. It's what when I decided to put my ass on one horse, that's what I did. I put it on one horse and I built seriousfun.io. I'm really proud of that too. And you can join the thousands of others that have learned how to explore the world of confidence.
And I've done some of those workouts and they're fun. They hurt. I'm not as bendy as Brooks is. He can crawl around on the ground and spin and turn. I fall over. Balance isn't there.
For now.
For now, true. Just to wrap up here, Brooks, I have a little something to show you.
Cool.
So,
oh, you said you had something up your sleeve. Oh man,
I have a little something up my sleeve here.
God, I hope it's a picture. God, I hope it's a picture.
Hold on a second here.
These
are our days in CrossFit Sentinel ONE. So,
oh my
some
goodness,
days back in the days here. But in the bottom here, you can see Brooks particularly looking fine at a Christmas party.
Yeah.
And you can see just how bendy Brooks is right there.
Quite bendy.
Ass to the ground in a squat. So you can imagine what the difference is there. But these are some of our buddies from back in the day.
There's Heather in the bottom row.
Oh yeah, and this is another coach and I practicing casual posing, and Brooks in the background practicing being a little creeper.
Oh man, this gives me so much love.
I'm going to send you these pictures, but I also have.
Oh my goodness! I should have worn my Move to Improve shirt. I have a Move to Improve shirt that I still wear regularly.
Vintage t-shirts. So, on that note, for us it's a throwback. For you guys, it's an introduction to our community overseas. But thank you, my friend, for being here, for sharing all of your knowledge and expertise. It's only a drop in the bucket. Anybody who does have questions for Brooks or other things they want to explore, please reach out to him. You'll continue to learn more. Check out his podcast. You'll get a really good feel for all of those things there. And if you want any of those details or information, shoot me a Slack or send me an email, and I will make sure you have the links, the connections, and all of that information.
Beautiful.
So,
well,
everybody,
Heather, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for coming and joining us today. Bridget and I got a lot of compliments last year. We got asked to have you back this year, and we're so glad you were able to join us. So
anytime.
Be careful what you wish for. We'll be having you in every month.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Bridget. And I will see you next month.
I love it. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, have a great week. Brooks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Appreciate it all.
Mm-hmm.
See you soon. Bye, everybody.